I grew up in Westminster, Maryland, in Carroll County on a small farm. I'm a proud graduate of Carroll County Public Schools. I was an entrepreneur even as a child, so I raised chickens and sold eggs to the neighborhood. I graduated from Westminster High School, and then I went to Franklin and Marshall College in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which was an excellent education to help prepare me for the world. I decided towards the end of college that I wanted to see a little bit more of the world. I wanted to do some big things, and in addition, I knew that I had been blessed, and because I was blessed, I also wanted to use that time to give back, to help others, and so I joined the Peace Corps. And so at the age of 22, I flew to Botswana, and I went to a remote village, and I started a junior secondary school. So I was one of 3 founders of the Chobe Junior Secondary School in Kasane, Botswana, and I taught English, gym, and I raised chickens in Botswana as well. That was a big and bold experience. I went to Columbia in New York City, and I got a master's degree in political science. And then I went back out again and worked on the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. And, I did cross-border work in terms of providing assistance and humanitarian life support in Afghanistan. I finally decided to go to law school, and I sent my application into Georgetown, and I sent them a $100 check, which was the admissions fee, and I said, look, I'm sending this from the Pakistan-Afghanistan border. If my application is so deficient or it's so late that you won't even accept it, please don't cash the $100 check. I loved law school, which I know a lot of people don't, but at that point I had been 6 or 7 years out of school, and so going back in was an exciting time for me. I worked hard, I was paying for it on my own, and I studied international law. I was a corporate lawyer for about 5 years, and it provided the skills and the tenacity. While I love New York City and I loved being a corporate lawyer, I also wanted more then as well. And I was extremely fortunate to get into the Foreign Service as a lawyer, which is very, very competitive. And so I joined the Foreign Service after being a corporate lawyer. So I was a diplomat representing America in the toughest, most dangerous places on the face of the earth. I first served in South Asia, then Central Asia, and then I was elevated into the senior management ranks, and I worked on the Israel-Palestinian account for a very long time. And so I went in 2005, right before Gaza disengagement, and of course there were a series of wars between Israel and Palestine, and particularly out of Gaza, like we are experiencing again today. But I helped blunt and manage the risks that were associated as a result of those wars. President Obama asked me to be a part of the negotiating team when he came in. I mean, I actually worked with President Bush's negotiator too, General Jim Jones. And then when Obama came in, he picked George Mitchell, who was the former Senate Majority Leader. And so I worked very closely with him. I'll just say from there, I was the first into Libya. When the Libya war occurred, I flew in with the ambassador, and I led the humanitarian and economic response to that war. I served in Iraq for 17 months. At that point, I was called back to Washington, and President Obama nominated me, and I was confirmed by the Senate Republicans and Democrats to be the assistant administrator for the USAID global response to every crisis on the face of the earth. When President Trump came in, I was his representative on the Yemen conflict. I was based in Saudi Arabia there, and it was at that point, about halfway through the Trump administration, that I decided to retire from the Foreign Service, and I opened up my own company, the Georgetown Strategy Group. And I look at technology and capital in complex emergencies and in complex economies, and figure out ways to drive results for people and communities. And I was perfectly happy being an entrepreneur. I hearkened back to my days as a child, and I would have stayed being an entrepreneur. But January 6th happened. And for me, January 6th changed everything. What happened was so demoralizing, so dispiriting, so traumatic for our troops overseas that it was appalling. It made my son's job harder to represent America when you saw the chaos on the Capitol. Andy Harris fueled the attack, fueled the insurrection, tried to break democracy. I know who we are. We're not insurrectionists. We defend America. That's what we do. We defend America. We are proud to be Americans. We promote democracy. We stand tall, and we also help others. And we keep our word. And when he did not do that, it was a crystal clear decision on my part that I wanted to defeat him. The hard truth is that there are 240,000 registered Republicans and 175,000 registered Democrats. There are 100,000 independents. In order to win this race, the winning candidate on the Democratic side will have to take 35,000 votes away from Andy Harris and put it into the winner's account. I can do that. I can work from the progressives to the centrists to the independents to the Hogan Republicans who just want decency and competence. What Andy Harris doesn't understand, and frankly, what the Democratic candidate pool in front of us don't understand, are the massive market and economic disruptions that will be facing us over the next 10 years. It doesn't matter if you believe in climate change or not. Financial and capital markets and technology have already decided. We are moving as a country and as a globe towards climate solutions. The only choice for the First District is whether or not we design, build, innovate, and sell these solutions to the world, or we buy from the world. Right now, as we crawl out of this pandemic and we look at the changing nature of capital markets and technology, this district could be a global leader. And that's not a stretch. This district is closest to some of the highest end markets on the face of the earth, has some of the most talented people on the face of the earth, and it's attached very, very neatly to some of the leading universities around the globe. So I would like us to seize that economic future. I would like us to create economic opportunity and wealth. I would like us to create the jobs for working families so that they can give the legacy of an American dream to their kids. As it relates to Afghanistan, I understand that people are tired of endless wars, and I am too. I would have hoped that we could have kept a small presence after 20 years of hard fighting, simply just to serve as a bit of stability in Afghanistan, but also as a forward, almost as a forward operation to project American power in areas that are close to Russia and China. And I do think that America has been an extraordinary force for good. We should never shy away from that. I care about the U.S. military. My son's in it, as I mentioned, right? So I don't want undue risks, but I also want an America that leads. I mean, I was a negotiator on the Israeli-Palestinian front. I was there during the 2014 war. I responded and I de-escalated a lot of the conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians. But let's be clear about one thing. The United States has tried to de-risk that conflict. But we are not the indispensable party. This is a conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians. At the end of the day, they are going to have to resolve it themselves. We have tried, and we've really tried. And there are things that we can offer and incentives that we can suggest that would help deconflict this. But the Israelis and Palestinians live in the same neighborhood, and no one's leaving. They can't get divorced. They are destined to live together. And at some other time, when we have more opportunity, I can walk through some of the varying things and the negotiating points and the role that economics could play in order to de-risk conflict. But you know, America is not going to solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We've tried. It's going to be the Israelis and the Palestinians. So I'm going to be very clear. The statute should not remain on the courthouse steps. And let me explain why. First of all, we are a nation of laws. We are a nation where there is equal justice under the law, where justice is blind. And the symbolism of this statute on the courthouse undermines the very essence of equality under the law. If this were a statute that poor mothers who lost their sons in the war raised some dollars together and wanted to honor their children, that would be one thing. Not at the courthouse, in a cemetery. But to put this statute, which is divisive, that is paid for and upkept by tax dollars, on a public space, on a courthouse, defeats the whole purpose of the sanctity of the rule of law. But there's more. If you care about your businesses and your home values and creating new jobs and small businesses that can trade with the world, and to opening up Easton for an economy that is attractive to the entire eastern seaboard and beyond, then the statute will cut against economic opportunity. I want us to be forward-looking. There are plenty of spaces in private cemeteries where we can honor those who have died. But the courthouse is not one of those spaces.